Hey there, it's Perry with PapercraftingThreads. Thanks for joining me. Today, I have a Pop-Out Burst Fun Fold card, and the name is exactly what it is. Gather your supplies and let's get started. Today's card features the Wild Bunch stamp set. I have a piece of basic white cardstock that measures 3.5 inches by 2 3/4 inches, and then some scraps. So I have some Tuxedo Black Memento ink and the little koala. And then on my scrap piece, I need a full koala and the eucalyptus branch. And then I have an envelope, and I'm also stamping the eucalyptus on there. And then off camera, I stamped the Just a Little Note and trimmed it down. I have a piece of Azure Afternoon cardstock that measures 2 inches by 8 inches. And I have Azure Afternoon ink. And taking that eucalyptus branch, just randomly stamping. And then I have the little squares here, and I've positioned it on here so that I can get just one square inked up with this little blob, making sure I'm changing direction as I ink it up. Then to color in my little guy here, I'm using light petal pink, adding some of that up in the ears, tiny bit by the eyes and a little bit down here. Using light basic black for the nose. And then light gray granite for everything. And staying on this one so that my ink stays wet. And going over that with a little bit of light crumb cake. And then using the color lifter to soften this edge. And then repeating all of that on this one. For my eucalyptus, I'm using light shaded spruce at the base of each leaf. These are so tiny, the blending's not going to matter. I can do all of them at once. And dark lemon lolly, just pulling that across. And for my envelope, taking that same piece of scratch paper I had and inserting that in the envelope, then coloring my eucalyptus. This is so the color doesn't bleed through to the back of the envelope. It'll bleed onto the piece of scratch paper that I used as liner. And then don't forget to remove that. And then also on my little note, taking the dark lemon lolly and just accenting the left side of each letter. And then fussy cutting the 3 on here and this full koala. I have a piece of Summer Splash cardstock that measures 8.5 by 5.5, scored down the middle at 4 1/4 like a standard card base. I'm placing it in my trimmer with the short edge at the top and the long edge using this marker over here at 1 1/4 inches. Switching to this ruler and cutting down to 1 3/4 inches. Then pick up the score blade and move it down 1/2 inch to 2 1/4. And cutting down to 6 1/4. And picking it up moving it 1/2 inch to 6 3/4, and cutting to the end. So I have a cut line, 1/2 inch gap, cut line, 1/2 inch gap. Turn it and repeat on the opposite side. So line up this side with 1 1/4 inches, pulling down to 1 3/4 inches, picking it up from 2 1/4 to 6 1/4, pick it up, and 6 3/4 to the end. Now turning it this way, I want to score from the cut line to the cut line on each section. So putting this at 1 3/4, and that's where my cut line is. Putting my score blade in the middle and going up to 1 1/4, or visually just looking at it, and down to 4 1/4. Or again, just I can see exactly where that cut line is. Moving this over to 2 1/4, and that now lines up this cut line. And again, score from cut line to cut line. And I'm just turning it this way to use the same measurements again. 1 3/4, and score, and score, and 2 1/4, and score, and score. And that's my card base. Then I have a piece of the Splash of Sparkles DSP, and this measures 6 1/2 by 2 3/4 inches, and I'm going to cut it into 4 pieces. So I want the first piece, let's see, I think I want the green on this side. I want the first piece to be 1 1/2 inches. The next one, 1 3/4 inches. Another 1 3/4 inches. And the last one should be 1 1/2. And I'm keeping these in order. And then this piece that was 2 by 8 inches, I'm cutting down to 4 pieces. So cutting it in half at 1 inch lengthwise, and then turning it and cutting it into 4 inches. And then I need to slice this in half at 1 3/4. Now to fold the score lines on the base. So these 2 outside sections are going to be mountain folds. So I'm just going to give them a gentle pinch, being careful not to tear my cardstock because it's not bending very well yet. And then on here, folding the first one as a valley fold. The next one as a mountain fold. And then a valley fold, and a mountain fold. And this last one as a valley fold. And now that I have them all started, I can go back and reinforce them. And there's our pop-out burst. And then folding it flat again and applying each section. and flip this over and apply these to the back. Laying down my eucalyptus branches. Don't want this one to extend past that line. This one can extend a little bit. And then adding dimensionals to my koala, but avoiding his right ear and placing him here. And he is going to hang over this score line a little bit. And then I can take my eucalyptus and place this one up here. And then I use the Happy Labels punch off camera, sorry about that, to trim off the end of this just a little note. And then I have the Darling Duckling ribbon and adding a glue dot where that's folded and adding some more and placing that behind my just a little note. And flipping it over and adding more glue dots. And then adding some of these gems from my stash. And there you have it, a pop-out burst card that folds flat for mailing. Find written instructions over on my blog at... If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, share, and thanks for watching. Bye!